It's time to be woke. Take off your shades, it helps see through the smoke. Cause the wicked hide behind the cloak. And if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked. So listen up, cause this hair of the dog. What's real, what ain't? Is this the fog or smog? Cause there's a difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the song, we out here, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy. It is Friday, and as we describe it here, it's fucking Friday. But today, our show has the flavor of a mishmash, a collection of different ideas, cyber potpourri, if you will. We are going to be talking about a number of different things this morning, but we're all going to, towards the end of this, kind of tie them all together and why they're happening currently and why it's important. It's going to be a good show to tune into watch today. I am going to now introduce my lovely and talented co-host, Ms. Kerri Barber. Good morning, Kerri.
Good morning, Andy. Welcome to Friday. Welcome, everybody. Just kind of a heads up, we had a power outage because Canada can't get their weather together. So there's
nothing new. It's same old. And I do personally want to apologize to the audience because it was my Wi-Fi that went out twice while we were trying to stream. And if whether I've behaved well or badly over the last 2 days, apparently Mother Nature is not done with us here in terms of continuing storm fronts and high winds. So, of course, that means that if a strategically placed tree branch falls in a strategically placed spot, it may happen again.
Right.
Just have to deal with it if it comes along, right? I've told Kerri that if I drop off, she must continue the show and play me and put up a picture of me and do an impersonation of me. So that in itself would be interesting, right, on its own.
It's not going to happen. But so, you said it the other day. It's unfortunate that we don't have the millions of dollars to have our own satellite van parked out front, because that would be great. But since we don't, and like most independent journalists, we got to get by with what we got. So that's kind of where we're at. And so once again, welcome to you. We've got quite a few new viewers. So Lewis, good morning. Everybody who's tuning in this morning, first time seeing the show, we are live and interactive, obviously. So if you have a comment, a question, a pushback, you want to critique something we said first, I posted all the links that we're going to discuss today so that you can read along and we can learn together. But if you have a comment, we'll read it on air. So I don't care if you keep it clean, just keep it relevant. And we'll do the best we can to have a family conversation here about what's going on, what we saw, some of the headlines. And occasionally we do this roundup of just light touches on stories that you saw because corporate news is not covering some of the issues we're going to discuss today. But typically, if you have an issue or something that you want to have discussed, you don't know what this actually means, you want a deeper dive, we tackle those issues too. So we're just talking about, it's weird, we haven't had any guests this week, but next week we have quite a few coming up, which we love. So if you have a particular person you think we should talk to, drop it in the chat and we will go ahead and book that person and have a conversation. So,
and I would suggest that maybe it was better that we not have guests this week, considering how our guest this week was Mother Nature.
Well, that's pretty much it. And boy, did she steal the show.
Yeah.
So,
So if you're going to comment, and we will respond back, obviously, but we only really require that you talk about truth, right? Be real. And if you're going to come on here with some sort of neoliberal or neocon talking point, gaslighting, dog whistle, whatever, uh, be ready for pushback, right? Because Kerri and I, we deal in facts and we deal in truths, and we research everything that we do. So your pushback is going to be based in reality instead of fantasy. Just a little FYI.
right, right, exactly. So, real quick, good morning to you folks already popping off on the chat. Mike Patino, good morning. And of course, the lovely Amber. Good morning, my lovelies. Happy Friendship. Oh, it's Friendship
Good morning,
Friday.
Amber.
Amber is trying so hard to rename these Friday shows to Friendship Friday, and we'll take it as a subhead. So there we go.
Well, maybe we can coordinate it and call it. No, I'm not going there.
Let's not. Don't.
No, that's bad.
Do not. Do
Yeah,
not.
Friends with Benefits Friday. Yeah.
Then it turns into an entirely different conversation. So, all right, before we continue off the rails and over the cliff, let's go ahead and get started this morning. So, Andy, if you would please, the first lovely graphic. Now, this is not a happy, fun story, but I do want to call back to what we discussed on Wednesday. If you're able to catch the piece together broadcast that we posted, we were talking then about the COVID vaccine and the US with the ability to suspend patents on those vaccines. And Andy touched on Bill Gates arguing against this particular action because, of course, Bill Gates has made a career and a fortune out of holding patents and holding them tight and making sure there's no competition. And then, previously we had the lovely Miss Sherry Weiss, a world-renowned economist, talking about antitrust laws. So here is what it looks like in action. This is a story from Reuters. What's going on in India? If you haven't been paying attention, or maybe you missed these headlines, it is catastrophic, and I cannot stress that enough. Only 9% of their entire population has so far received vaccinations. And it's not because people don't want it. They just don't have the supply. And so once again, I have to go back and remind people, especially, I forget, was it Gates who said, yeah, it was Gates who said that, they can't possibly manufacture it. Well, the truth of the matter is 90% of all drugs are manufactured in India and shipped back to the United States or other parts of the world. So for him to say that, at first, it's an outright lie. Second, it's a dirty, dirty lie. And here's the results of it. So what we absolutely need to do, and this is kind of a call to action for you on Friday, call the White House, call your congressperson, and tell them that we need to suspend patents. It's the right thing to do, because the other story that I did not post here, but I've been watching personally, is we have a situation here in the US where people who have been fully vaccinated are getting COVID because COVID still mutates. And they're getting COVID, and people are still getting very, very sick, hospitalized, and dying, even with the vaccine. And this is because when we don't take care of our global family, we are literally putting ourselves at risk. This is not in a situation where it's just those people over there and it doesn't affect me, and oh, how sad. This is us in a global community. We have just a little petri dish called Earth, and it's going to affect us. So this is, if you are not your brother's keeper, then it's going to come back and hurt you, as well as people are dying. This should be kind of a big deal for everyone, right?
Exactly. And just a little side note to this. We talk about the vaccines, and there's really 4 available on the market right now, in at least in the West, which are Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Janssen, or Johnson & Johnson, which is the parent company. And the first 2 are mRNA vaccines, and they work a specific way. And the next 2 are different altogether. But we look at efficacy and how much you're protected by these vaccines, the first two, Pfizer and Moderna, which came out first, and if you remember the timeline, they came out before these variants started to pop up. So the first variant was the B.1.1.7 variant that originated from the UK. The Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine came out before that. And so this efficacy is based on COVID, the original COVID before it started to mutate. The AstraZeneca and the Janssen viruses came out after. So when they did their efficacy, they saw 65, 66%, right? And that was because of the mutations. So when you want to compare apples to oranges, you can't do it because of the times that these studies occurred. And there's a lot of people that are afraid to get the AstraZeneca and the Johnson because of the stuff that they've heard with thrombosis and blood clots and what have you, and that the efficacy isn't as good. Well, if you did those studies now with Pfizer and Moderna, you very well could see the exact same numbers, right? So this is a very important thing and shows that when you have an opportunity to get this vaccine, and I have it at this point in Canada because apparently the Canadian dollar doesn't have the same buying power as the US dollar, but I've had access to none. But if you think that you're going to turn down the AstraZeneca because you're waiting for the Pfizer because it's better, it isn't, right? We have to make sure that people get vaccinated as soon as possible. And there's a lot of people that don't want to deal with the side effects. Well, I would suggest that the side effects of the vaccine are slightly better than the virus. So it's really important that people get.
Yeah, and I want to be clear in the statement that I made about the people who are still getting it and being hospitalized and dying. We're talking about, think of a funnel, right? And at the top of the funnel is everybody who is not vaccinated and the risk. And then at the very narrow end, it's a much smaller group that we're talking about that is affected after being vaccinated that needs to be hospitalized or is facing mortality rates. So you are protecting yourself statistically by the numbers. And I'm just of the opinion, everybody keeps going, oh, we're going to go back to normal. No, this is the new normal. And you will have to get a booster every once in a while because this thing is mutating, and it doesn't matter which version you got to begin with, they're all going to require boosters. They're already talking about it, particularly with the Johnson & Johnson one-shot version. That one, they're looking at July for a rollout of boosters for that. So,
and yeah, we're assuming that at that point, everyone will be vaccinated, which of course may be the case in places like the US and Canada, but certainly there are some countries in the world, especially in the poorer global South communities or countries, that haven't had a single vaccine yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so those are where our mutations are going to come from. Right. Another side note, just basically a little bit of history on Bill Gates and what he's done and how ludicrous his statements have been and just abhorrent, is that Bill Gates is basically the self-declared global person in charge of health across the world, right? And that's happened basically because of his money, right? Because he wanted that and cornered the market on it, right? Because, you know, he's the first in the line of billionaire copyright guys. He's the forefather of that. And so when the vaccines were being developed, he basically went to different countries in the world and said, okay, I'm going to start this group, and it's going to, I think they called it the COVAX group, right? And what they said was, we're not going to give up the patents on these vaccines, but we are going to get these large pharmaceutical corporations out of the goodness of their heart to give vaccines out, and we're going to pool them and we're going to give them to the countries that need them. And he promised by this time that number would be around 2 billion vaccines, right? Which is still inadequate for what the world needs, but at least it's a start. Well, to date, that group has made or delivered 36 million, right? Of the 2 billion that they said was going to happen. Okay. So this was seeable. We could tell that something like this was going to happen because you're looking for the corporate greed society to be generous. And that's impossible for them to be that, right? So now they asked Bill Gates, well, can you drop the patent now? And of course, his answer was no, right? But not because of the reasons that he said. It was because he is a capitalist, the capitalist, and we can't stop people, our large corporations, our pharmaceutical corporations, from making these huge profits, right? And the bullshit argument that there's no places to make these in other countries. There are currently 3 brand new facilities with all new equipment and perfectly set up facilities, one which is in India, that is ready to start mass producing vaccines if they only got the recipe for them.
That's exactly right.
So this is all total capitalist neoliberal bullshit, right? The same things that we see day to day in the US of why Americans can't have nice things, right? It's exactly the same. And it should be abhorrent to everyone because it's all eventually going to kill more people worldwide just because of the greed of this corporations.
Very well said, Andy. Another fine wisdom from Uncle Andy. So I want to get to some of the comments real quick. So, hey, Falcone, thanks for joining us this morning. Good morning, Don. Thank you for joining us. And then we have Josh again from North Carolina. Now my dog's going to bark. Josh, for a guest that we need to get on. This is Erica Smith, 3-time state senator who's running against Senator Burr's eventual empty seat for 2022. So yeah, absolutely. We'll reach out and see if we can have a lovely conversation with her. He says she's
Senator Burr's empty seat. There's a joke there.
Yeah, there is. Let it go.
That seat occupied by Burr has been empty for a while.
Oh boy. Yeah. Isn't that the truth? So thank you, Josh, for that one. And then Dawn joined us. Falcone, good morning. Hello. And then I believe this is Josh, but I'm not sure because name didn't come through. But they said, I stopped by my pharmacy the other day for a prescription. They're at a point now where they have open walk-in appointments because people are refusing to get their second dose. Got to get that second dose, people. And these people are citing the suspension of the Johnson & Johnson for the reason of not trusting the other vaccines. And they say that they're fully vaccinated, and they had the Moderna one that kicked his butt.
Moderna.
Yeah. I've been talking way too much.
Oh, these rented lips.
Yeah, it's not working. I'll get it together. And then Amber says, I feel like we hardly hear about the Russian vaccine. I understand it's very effective. Oh, Amber, you missed that show. You missed that one. We covered it. Yeah, you're right. And we'll do a review on it because yeah, they started at 95% efficacy. And it was up to and including the other variant that was coming from South Africa and Brazil. So yeah, we will definitely follow up and see what's going on with them because they have been shockingly transparent with their 3rd course of testing. They opened their books, opened all their testing data for peer review, which never happens. So yeah, I think what's actually going to happen here is the Russian vaccine is the one that's going to be distributed to all of these countries, and the US is just going to miss out. So,
well, maybe that's what they deserve.
Absolutely, because there are lives on the line, right? There's at a certain point where, you know, I don't want to get too far into this because we've got some other stories to cover, but
well, one thing I will just quickly say, because I want people to understand this. Of all the studies that we have so far that have looked into the side effects of the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine versus the Pfizer and the Moderna, right? And when we talk about the side effect of thrombosis of blood clots and how the AstraZeneca one and the Johnson & Johnson, whether they're dangerous, whether they should be used at all. I believe that it was either yesterday or the day before where they were talking in Europe about resuming production of these. Well, all of the studies that have happened so far have showed that these episodes occur with the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson 5 times in a million. Okay. With the Pfizer and Moderna, it's 4 times in a million. Okay. So first of all, it's highly unlikely that you will have any side effect of this nature, especially if you're healthy. Right. And there's really no difference between the two. So, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing online where it's dangerous and don't take it, and pregnant women shouldn't take it, and young people, that is generated from the anti-vaxxer groups that have been against vaccines since forever. Right. And so I want people to realize where this information is coming from and that you're quite safe. It's a lot easier to get the virus unvaccinated than it is vaccinated. And the side effects are very rare.
Very good. Excellent point. Excellent point. Okay. So not that this isn't important, but we're going to move on to the next story in our roundup. So for those of you who were living under a rock, there was a State of the Union this week. This is part of the U.S. political tradition. It's a little bit of our pomp and circumstances kind of traditional thing. So it was awkward.
Yes, I was going to say that, Kerri. As a Canadian, I was going to use the word cringe.
Yeah, it was. So it wasn't just what was said and how it was said. It was, the social distancing that happened in the chamber during the address. So take of it what you will. My own personal admonishment of people who watched it, and this is something I saw and I posted on social media. I did not personally watch State of the Union because I keep up with the news and I kind of know. And I'm of the opinion that I don't give a shit what you say. I pay attention to what you do. And the State of the Union address is it's a speech writer.
Performative.
Right. So the pushback that I want to give, particularly to the left, is I kept seeing this comment over and over and over about, I loved watching Biden with the 2 women behind him. And they were talking about Kamala Harris and, just Nancy Pelosi standing behind Biden. Like, this is a big thing. And I wanted to point out, and I want you to really consider this before you push back, that is the exact same performative statement and excuse of everything else that we heard when Obama became president, that you can't have racism because now we have a black man as president. So for you to focus on 2 women sitting behind, like Maxine Waters and all of these other House representative female members haven't been there for 4 decades, is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. If that's what you focused on, just a visual image of 2 women standing behind Biden, shame on you. Absolutely. Shame on you, because everything that's going on, particularly with women's issues, inequality in so many spaces, if that made you feel better, then your bar is so incredibly low that I really need you to step up your game here. Particularly if you're an American, we got a veritable shit show going on and people are suffering and dying right now. I don't give a shit who's standing behind Biden. I don't care. I don't care their gender, their orientation, whatever. None of it matters. Policy matters. So That's my soapbox for this morning.
And I still believe Tara Reid.
Thank you. Oh God, the Me Too thing. That was largely performative, wasn't it? Right. So speaking of performative, let's get to the Progressive Caucus leader. This is Senator Jayapal. I'm sorry, Congresswoman Jayapal. And she had this really lovely statement. So we all saw this is a PR move. When, like, if you're in a corporation, you've got your quarterly filings coming out and your SEC filings, you're going to have your CEO trot out and do, talking to the people, talking to investors. Well, what always happens before that is the PR team has these senior VPs and the next level down do this pep talk to their teams about, yay, this is great, awesome, we love our CEO, they're perfect. That's what we saw. We saw that particularly with the squad. So first, I'm going to let Congresswoman Jayapal do her little speech, because I think she sets up the context for this particular conversation. So Andy, would you mind please running that video?
I think that this has been a really interesting time for us to see how the progressive movement at large, all the progressive voters, young voters, voters of color that came out and turned out for the president in November, helping us to win the White House, the Senate, and the House, and the pandemic and the way in which it has just really shined such a bright light on all the inequalities that have existed. I think President Biden has risen to the moment, and I really do give him an A in what he's done so far. It's been bold, it's been progressive, it's been what the country needs. He hasn't shied away from it, he has leaned into it, and we're hoping that the same continues to happen as we go through the process to pass the Jobs and Families Plan.
So I'm going to label that video cringe part 2.
It really was, and I feel like it was rushed. And as I saw all of these videos come out from AOC, from Jayapal, from the squad, the thought in the back of my head was, I'm just kind of chuckling, going, okay, guys, I need you to, oh, Andy, you got the wrong graphic up, but I need you to
okay, sorry,
blink twice if you got a family member tied in a basement somewhere, because all of this was very well scripted. And in fact, Congresswoman Jayapal got the name of the policy wrong. I was looking at what she said, and it doesn't exist. It's actually the American Jobs Plan. And this was something that Andy and I covered a couple weeks ago. This is the infrastructure plan. And yes, it does include building Trump's wall. So we're still doing that. It also includes some kind of cool things about, obviously we need the infrastructure. We've needed it for decades. It also includes a package to help with caregivers in facilities and at home, to give them a little bit of a pay raise. But there was one thing in here I did want to cover before I get back to the crazy gaslighting that is going on. Prevailing wage, because prevailing wage is hard baked into this plan. And this is something that I really wanted to call out and let you know. So prevailing wage is something that is typically a union wage. And I included a link so you can read some more about this. Historically, this was originally a suggestion from conservatives, Republicans, who adopted prevailing wage and put that into policy. So you'll see that at a local level with your county, your state, and now federal. So what it is it defines the hourly wage and with benefits and overtime paid to the majority of workers, that's laborers, mechanics within a particular area. So it is the wage where you live. If this project is going to be done in your county, they already do a survey from private businesses, from unions, from all of these folks, and they get to the prevailing wage number, and that is what is being paid. It's a requirement to pay that wage for the work that is being proposed. Why this is brilliant is prevailing wage, it's your tax dollars at a state level matched with federal dollars for like a highway or something like that. And it prevents a carpetbagger from a bullshit state coming into your state and them paying bullshit wages, or even undocumented workers paying them dollars per hour, and taking the work from your neighbor because they come in at a lower bid, right? So let me make sure that that's clear. A prevailing wage for a project in your area must pay the wages in your area. And that prevents, like, if you're in Illinois, it prevents an Indiana company from bidding low on the project, winning the bid, and then hiring a bunch of undocumented workers or not paying their American workers a good wage and using that to take money out of your state coffers. So prevailing wage is a hugely good benefit to your local economy, and it's something that unions fight for. So know it, love it, live it. Prevailing wage is awesome. So put a link in there so that you could see that. And I also put a link to this jobs plan from the White House. Now, I have not actually seen the legalese that comes with it. We may not, it may be piecemeal kind of rolled out. And as it is rolled out, I will bring you the legal information, because as we know, what they say in the White House and what they actually do sometimes are two different things. So we'll be watching that one closely. But getting back to Congresswoman Jayapal and whatever the fuck she was saying here, I just want to remind people that HR 1976, this is the new introduction of Medicare for All. It is the bill from Congresswoman Jayapal. It was introduced in early March. It is still sitting there with no committee assignments. This is her bill to expand Medicare to all Americans and increase benefits and reduce costs overall. This is the one that Andy and I talked about that had this really interesting brand new disclaimer that the Speaker of the House can schedule this at will, and it's got to be marched through like 7 different committees.
Or not.
Or not in this case. So her bill is just sitting there collecting dust. And for those of you with your knee-jerk reaction saying, well, you got to give it time. No, fuck you. And let me explain why. It takes all of 30 seconds to set something up on a schedule. There are literally legions of staffers and people who are responsible for getting the schedule. All they need is a yes from Speaker Pelosi to get this on the schedule. And it's still sitting there. So let's be realistic with what's going on. And then when it comes to AOC and the squad and everybody with these performative promotional videos, yay Biden, let's talk about the strategy of this for a bit, because I know that people on the left are going, what the hell, this is gaslighting. And then other people are like, no, you got to give it time. It's only been 100 days. Okay, here is my prediction on what's going on behind the scenes. Because I've seen this many, many times from your local Democratic chairperson in your county to the state. And this is another common tactic. And let's be honest, I've said this before, these people are not creative. They just use the same playbook because this stuff kind of works. So I want you to see this, and hopefully I'm wrong, but here's what I think is happening. You have strategists within the Democratic Party, and these could be Steny Hoyer, or they could be someone whose name you don't even know, or, you know, White House staff or whatever. They're going to these people with this plan, this rollout plan, the PR plan, and they're having them adopt it for whatever reason. Hey, do this, and then we'll do this. You know, that negotiation piece that's going on. Here's where it's going to backfire. All of those staffers and all of those people, the DNC decision makers, these people who do the strategy, they get paid whether Democrats win or Democrats lose. They really don't give a shit. They don't have to. They are not paid to do that. So if you are, let's say, a member of the squad and you're listening to this information and you're reading a prepared statement that they give you, what they are actually doing is making it so that you are cutting your knees off for them. And you can already see this. You can see people in the states where the squad is hailing from, working on getting them a primary challenger, working on taking back all of their support, taking back their funding, all of these things. So if you're a strategist for the DNC, and let's be honest, they don't like the squad, then it behooves you to cajole them into this kind of activity so that they are damaging their own credibility and you win either way. So that's what I think is happening here. I'm not yet ready to say there's maliciousness on the part of the squad. What I'm saying is they are being duped, they're being used, and they're going to hurt themselves in the long run, and we're already seeing it. So I am particularly disappointed that the chair of the Progressive Caucus would make these statements about an A+ and all of these other things, and use the term progressive the way that Nancy Pelosi uses it. It is a complete co-opting of the word. Progressive is about policy. You can't put on a mantle of progressive and then do shitty things. So no, you don't get to use that word. You don't get to use that term. And you certainly don't get to assign it to a conservative like Biden. Sorry, you don't. So this is my take on what's going on with the squad. And that's about all I want to cover on the State of the Union, because the whole thing was just weird. Just weird. So yeah, there's that.
Well,
Uh-huh.
sometimes this is a time period where the new normal is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Amber has something to say. So Amber says, I'm interested in whether the funding is set in perpetuity or will it eventually run out, giving neoliberals the excuse to say that a jobs program doesn't work. Ooh, good point, because we've seen that before. Yeah, it's like Lucy with the football. So good point. And then Josh from North Carolina, he says, Jayapal is delusional. What has Biden signed into law that permanently alters the economic structure in favor of the working class and working poor? Nothing Biden has done has been progressive, and the only thing he has done is make a bunch of concessions to Republicans over the COVID bill and jump bars on the ground as he undoes Trump-era policies, like rejoining the Paris Agreement. And I had this discussion with someone else about the Paris Agreement just this morning. So for those of you who don't know, and maybe it doesn't come on your radar, global scientists who study our climate and the effects of climate change had years ago castigated the Paris Agreement for not going far enough. And then most recently, those same scientists looked at all of the major countries, including the US, Germany, and other places, and went, you guys were saying this and signing this agreement, but on the back end, you were ramping up things like fracking and all of these really horrible policies. So on one hand, you were doing something, on the other hand, you were undoing it. And my pushback on those people who said Biden rejoined the Paris Agreement on the same day he expanded fracking licensing. So you got to be objective here.
Yes. The Paris Agreement is basically how did I put it, Kerri, before we went on? Scratching your skin to cure cancer.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So, guys, we've only got 8 years left, and this is why I'm pushing so hard to lull people out of their brunch sleepiness. Because I don't care if it's AOC, I don't care if it's Jayapal. I'm sure they're lovely people. My family's at stake. Your family's at stake, right? And we're seeing this ramping up on a massive scale. Let's not forget, we almost lost the entire continent of Australia. Okay, so then Mike says the squad is being duped, and AOC is staining for the progressive reference to our movement. And that's exactly right. And I've said this before about AOC in particular. Disappointed that she has chosen this path. It's her choice. But my problem with it is candidate AOC was stellar. She was right on. She said all the right things. When we get the next AOC who really believes it and is committed to it and who's willing to give up everything to live that message and fight for it, how will we recognize them? Because we've had a Jayapal, we've had AOC, we've had all of these squad members say some things and then cave completely. How are we going to know? So we have another one who's running high profile, Nina Turner out of Ohio, and their primary is coming up. Let's say she prevails in that primary. Do we believe her, or is it just going to be another, the proverbial boy cried wolf? How are we going to recognize that champion for the people when they finally show up? Or somebody with a backbone, or all of these things. You're not, because they're always going to push back. Now, AOC has given them this wonderful narrative of the false progressive. And I think that has done so much more damage to the progressive movement than Nancy Pelosi ever could have done.
Well, and I think, and I know that you and I have disagreed with this on a number of occasions, but I don't think that you take someone who's young, like AOC, who's never really done anything in politics, and take her and put her in a situation where she's going to have the years of experience that a seasoned politician is going to have and know the proper course to take, right? I don't think that the quote unquote progressives in Congress right now have been necessarily co-opted. I believe that they've been painted into a corner, for lack of a better term, right? That their inexperience has really kind of co-opted their message. And that's fine. And you can say, well, we're not looking to this. We can't look to the squad for change right now. Well, that might be the case, but that might just be that they don't think that they have the numbers to do that. Now, does that mean that we have to question every single person that stands up for these specific policies? Not necessarily. If that means that, in the next midterms, there is going to be double the number of progressives now in the Progressive Caucus, right? Because the power comes and goes, right? And so if that's the case, that's fine, because there is obviously strength in numbers. Okay. But take that with a grain of salt, because I've also always agreed that the real change doesn't come from the political system or electoral politics. It comes from the ground, from the grassroots movements, from the people, right? And the politicians change to the will of the people if enough people get behind it, right? So there's all of that.
Okay, all right. So a couple of things, and we need to organize a boxing match over this one. We're not going to have time today, but a couple of things. I am 8 years older than AOC. So right. She's not young. She has a degree. She has experience. To just think that she was just a bartender and not actually working on policy before she got into office. And 2, she's got paid staffers who know the ins and outs. And 3, it takes me 30 seconds to find the House rules. 4, I'm going to be covering this piece, particularly the piece about the argument that there's not enough of them to make a difference. I'll be doing that later on KRTD, their network, this afternoon around 5 p.m. Eastern, to talk about that. And here's the reality. You cannot set up Joe Manchin as the foil, and he's trashing all of these policies and blah, blah, blah. And then on the other hand, say that the progressives in the House don't have enough members. These two arguments do not go together. So to say that a Bernie Sanders in the Senate and an AOC in the House do not have the exact same power and the rules behind them that a Joe Manchin has is, I think, dangerous and ignorant of the rules. So when we say, oh, we only have 120 members of the progressive, oh my God, that's all you need. That is absolutely all. In fact, you only need one. You just need one to stand up and say, no, I will not. And you've got the bully pulpit in front of you. Plus, she's got millions of supporters who would go, yeah, okay, she's right. Absolutely. So that's all I'm going to say on that. If you want to tune in this afternoon, KRTD, we'll talk about that one at length. But real quick, I want to get to these comments. Oh, Mike Patino is not happy with you, Andy.
No, I don't get me wrong. I'm not an expert per se in American politics. I'm not even American. Okay, so give me a
no,
break.
I know, but you're giving the same talking points.
What
yeah.
But no. Let me be the glass half full guy in this discussion, right? I don't know I've never been involved in politics. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what the squad goes through on a daily basis within the Democratic Party in Congress, right? If there's ever any positive change going to happen, it's okay to be optimistic about that, right? Mm-hmm. Do I know what's happening in there? No, I'll admit that 100%. But do people who have lived a specific way their entire lives, right, who have, basically had a set of morals and ideals their entire lives, do they switch that or flip that switch and shut that off? Mm-hmm. I'd like to think that no, not necessarily, right? So let me be the optimist in this group. I'm not suggesting one way or the other, but I'm just maybe playing the devil's advocate.
That's fine. And I will concede on the one point that I agree with you. The change needs to happen at a local level. And I keep bringing out my state, which is, if you don't know what's going on in New Mexico, and I brought it up many, many times, we are progressive as fuck. You look at everything on the progressive agenda, the only thing that we haven't done right now is Medicare for all. That's it. Everything else on that agenda, that wish list, that laundry list that we need to survive, it's done. It's done here, including ending qualified immunity, not just for police, but for every elected official. Right. So yeah, I agree with you because I get to live it here. And I want this for everyone else too. So yeah, you're right. It's something that we cannot rely on Congress for. We cannot have these golden calves like AOC and the squad and look to them as celebrity heroes, because they're obviously not. And whatever the reason may be.
Let's not forget the political system. The way it's supposed to work is a congressional group of people, human beings, choose an elected person of that group to go to Washington and speak for them. If you don't think that person is speaking for you, then you have the right to say, you're not doing it. I'm holding your feet to the fire. That's how the system is supposed to work. Yeah. I agree with a lot of people that say that these instant celebrity fame, that AOC and a number of the other ones that have been, that are on the cover of magazines and, like the Kardashians, it's right. A totally wrong way to do electoral politics, obviously. Right.
But it makes money. That's why.
Well,
and they played right into it. They played right. AOC with her cover shoot on this. What was the cost of her outfit? It was like $14,000, and they gave it to her, and she put it on because who wouldn't, right? The temptation is so there. But yeah, you're right. So all right, we're getting close to the top of the hour, and we got 2 more stories we got to cover here. All right. So let's get to Elon and Tesla.
Everybody's favorite capitalist.
Yes. So for the second time, a judge upheld a prior ruling. Elon and Tesla got busted for union busting. And there were a couple things in here. So when I've seen the articles covering this, even the union coverage on this one, they missed a couple pieces and they buried the lead on this. So I included his tweet that was in here. And the reason why his tweet was cited by the National Labor Relations Board is because Tesla as a corporation did the same thing that Trump and the White House did, that they tied his private account to the corporation's PR effort. And they said when Elon tweets, he speaks for Tesla. So that's why they cited this particular tweet in particular, where he said that nothing's stopping the Tesla team at our car plant from voting union. They could do so tomorrow, but why pay union dues? This is the part that where it was illegal. Why pay union dues and give up stock options for nothing? That's a threat. Can't do that.
Absolutely.
And then he goes on to say our safety record is 2 times better than the plant was UAW. That's also not true. So all of this is illegal. You cannot do it. So what happened at Tesla is there was a gentleman, an employee, a good employee by Tesla's own standing, Mr. Ortiz, Richard Ortiz, who was openly organizing for union membership within the plant. They terminated him, and they did some pretty shady things to others who were trying to organize a union. And then they had their own reverse campaign, and they were making threats and all of these other sorts of things. So this complaint came out, and it's been going on for a couple of years. So what happened is the National Labor Relations Board said that they must immediately rehire Mr. Ortiz and reinstate him with back pay and benefits, that Mr. Musk, Elon, must delete his tweet. The company also has to post in every facility your rights as a worker to organize and form a union, and also what the company cannot do to violate that law. So now they have to go back and make sure that everybody understands what your rights are as a worker, to discuss these things and talk about, and how to recognize when management is breaking the law. So
And there was pushback from Tesla because they say, well, if you want us to make up these posters, they don't make paper big enough.
Oh, do you not know a plotter printer when you see one? Absolutely. So Mike, he says, too bad he can't do prison time. Oh boy, yeah. And we've discussed the National Labor Relations Board in other matters, particular when it came to Amazon and the workers trying to organize there. They do have limited power, and they can't. I mean, so they could forward it to the Department of Justice and recommend charges, but that's all they can do. So yeah, Elon, you're lying. You got caught lying, and hopefully the workers there.
Maybe we can get that nickname, Elion. Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, Elon. So yeah, so I was really happy to see this ruling come out. And again, this was they upheld a prior ruling that Tesla had appealed to the national board. So yeah, you lost. Okay, so then this last one, this is the Biden administration. This one was kind of interesting because you could view this from so many different directions. This is the Biden administration admitting that they're getting ready to ban menthol cigarettes and the flavored cigar rolls. So for those of you who are not familiar, Swisher Sweets and all of those other little cigars that come in flavors, they come in so many different flavors: cherry, strawberry, whatever, mango, coconut. And some people use them to smoke the tobacco in the cigar, and some people take the tobacco out, open it up, roll their weed in it, and it makes for a really nice flavored blunt. So I included 2 links here, one to Leafly that helps you understand the difference between a joint, a blunt, and a spliff, and then so that you can really understand the holistic context of what this ban entails. And then the article to the Biden administration banning the menthol cigarettes. And also, this is what I thought was interesting. This entire policy was built off of a Canadian study where Canadian provinces between 2016 and 2018 actually did this ban. So I guess it was, it didn't name the provinces, but here's what I thought was interesting. So I put a link to the Canadian study where it evaluated the impact of menthol cigarette bans on cessation, that's quitting smoking, behaviors in Canada. And here's what they found in the study that the Biden administration is citing as they said it was a good idea. No, so not necessarily. So 59% of Canadians before the ban, where they were menthol smokers, 59% of them, when the ban went into effect, switched to non-menthol cigarettes. 21% of them they quit smoking. 19% still smoke menthols, but they were purchasing them from the First Nation reserves. These are the indigenous people who
Yes.
grow their own tobacco and all of that sort of thing. So they were getting it. So they just switched from the commercial products to First Nations. The other part of this that they're not talking about, the Biden administration, is this particular study also covered flavored vape. So the Biden admin hasn't admitted or mentioned if they're talking about extending this to vape products. But maybe, because we've seen that kind of rolling out a little bit where they're floating a ban on vape products. You're already right now cannot get mail order vape products. You have to get them locally. So they started putting the squeeze on. But I posted this study for a reason, because if you're just listening to the White House and the Biden administration, they make it sound like this study unequivocally proved that this is a success, and it's not. It's not quite what they're saying it is. And then the study itself also presupposes that maybe they headed off anybody who might start smoking, and you can't quantify that. There's no math, so they really can't make that assertion at all. So, Andy, you're in Canada.
It's one of those things, kind of like when a conservative state says that if you want welfare benefits, you have to go through an illegal drug test, right, before you can get them, because of the fallacy that people that need social assistance are drug addicts, right? When you say that in the media that we're going to start doing this, unless you critically think about what that actually means, it sounds like a pretty good idea, right? We don't want people on welfare who are drug addicts, because that's just, where their money's going to go, right?
Mhm.
But of course, whenever any of those states have put this into effect, they've seen that it's completely false, that it was a complete waste of money, right? That people that need social assistance were using it to actually survive by buying food and paying their rent. And so it was always brought in with a big bang, but it quietly disappeared after a while. This is the same thing. It makes the menthol cigarette story, it sounds great on paper, right?
Mhm.
It looks like it's a great idea. Well, you look at it, it's just a bunch of malarkey, to use somebody's favorite word.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And it reminded me of the soda ban, where you couldn't get the trough of soda in New York for a while. But here's my personal experience, right? So where do I even begin? So let me condense this. So I am a smoker, and not a lot. Like it takes me days to go through what would be considered a pack. And I talked to my doctor about it, and my doctor back in Illinois, he was so great. He was just so straight to the point. He's like, okay, let me get this straight. During a global pandemic, when all of this stuff is going basically sideways, he would cuss frequently in front of me. And he said, and then you're getting ready to move and you've got everything else going on, and you're telling me that now is when you want to quit smoking. He's like, are you nuts? Are you crazy? He's like, I would rather you be successful when you quit, but with everything going on, the stress of the world and all of these sorts of things, I don't want to see you on the news committing homicide. And he's right. So in my mind, if you enjoy a Swisher Sweet and you're blunt, or if you are a smoker, first you're an adult, what the hell? How can we on one side say that you do not deserve, nor should we consider a national health care plan, But on the other side, we're going to say, but you can't have your tobacco nor your blunt or any of these other things. These two, once again, do not go together. There's no consistency. And I think you're right, Andy. This is just another huge distraction. So knee-jerk reaction from the Trump administration, whenever something bullshit would come out like this, I'd be like, oh shit, what are they going to do? Because that's a distraction. Something worse is coming. So now I'm like, got the PTSD thing going. What is the Biden administration going to do now? Right. And now that they're talking about this horrific policy, but then again, talking to other people, they brought up the point that, well, of course Joe Biden would do this because this is the same guy who was all on board with the super predator thing. Now we're taking this in the context of a racially motivated, just mean policy. So this is a guy we know was raised in a racist kind of environment, who was best buddies with Klan members, who has made racially charged statements throughout his entire career. Of course, Andy, that old school thinking, well, let's take away the menthol cigarettes from the blacks and their blunts. And this is just a watered down version of the war on drugs. Because this is the same White House that just fired good staffers because they admitted to ever smoking weed. Ever. Not yesterday, not this morning on the way to work, ever. And they walked those staffers out. So of course they would go after the blunts and possibly the vapes and the menthol cigarettes. So I this is just bad all around. I can't find anything redeeming for this.
Right.
So,
exactly.
and of course, Mike is blaming you, Andy, because you're Canadian. That came off a Canadian study. So,
Okay, well, that's fair.
Because all Canadians know everybody in Canada.
That's right. That's right. I'll blame John in Toronto.
There you go. Way to go, John. Way to go. So actually, I know people in Toronto. So hey, Arvin.
Don't go there.
Yeah. So this one is just you want to laugh about it, but I'm like, really, with everything going on, this is what you want to lead with. Why would you do this? This is epically bad. Epically bad. So.
And it's performative, as we've seen, right? Like, I said it ad infinitum that my yardstick, let's say, for Biden going left is he making any decisions that will cost the donor class money, right? And you look at all of the policies and all of the things that he's been praised for in terms of progressiveness. He has yet to do anything that's going to cost any of the donor class money. And that's the key, right? We're going to do election reform, voting reform, which doesn't cost anyone money, and it just makes Democrats more easily elected, right? That's all that is, right? Any of the infrastructure bill, any of the money that's going into infrastructure as badly as the U.S. needs it, right, is basically money that's going to go to large corporations who are going to hire people just above minimum wage to go and work in the capitalist society. All of these things that we're looking at, right? Like where's the public option that Joe was so a fan of when they were talking about Medicare for all? Even that neoliberal suggestion has never been talked about. It's never come into fruition, right? So we still are seeing the same old with the Democrats.
Oh, that's absolutely true. So here's a little bit of good news coming up. So there's an event on May 22nd. Pivot just a little bit, sorry, Andy, because we're about out of time. KRTD is hosting this amazing event coming up on May 22nd. And I have been honored to be asked as a panelist at the first part of this. There are, I think, 6 different segments to this what is being called the Solution Summit. So it's not just a bunch of talking heads on there bitching about things, but actually providing some solutions, some good points of conversation to address a lot of the issues that people on the left in the progressive space are talking about. So I have been invited on it, and lovely Andy has been asked to host some of these particular segments. So we here at Hair of the Dog have been completely picked up for this event. And I gotta tell you, I'm not allowed to say everybody who's participating, but I'm kind of humbled to be part of this event because of the people that are signing on to have these discussions. It's going to be amazing, and they're going to start rolling out more information about who all is participating, but you got to sign up for the newsletter, and I just posted the link to that, so just go ahead and sign up so that you get all the information about how you can participate, who signed on, who's going to do it, and again, save the date for May 22nd. This will be all afternoon. It's going to be incredible, and I applaud them at KRTD for putting this together. It's really cool, really cool.
Yes, I believe that the timing of that event, the day starts at about 4 p.m. Eastern in the afternoon and goes till about 9 p.m. Eastern in the evening. So it's a very substantial event, and so yeah, just honored to be included, and hopefully I don't mess up, make a fool of myself.
You won't. Everybody loves Andy. I mean, I'm the one who has to get out there and fight for policy stuff. But no, I think it's I'm really delighted and so impressed with how they're putting this together. So I just want to make sure we talked about that, and you'll see more information coming out from us, from KRTD, and from all the other participants as they get announced. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity, and I'm thrilled to do it. Just to have the opportunity to speak to like-minded progressives about policy, about different things in society that are happening. Just picking brains, and it's just going to be a wonderful opportunity. And yet, you're correct, and I've seen partial lists of people that they're lining up for this, and it's going to be a good one. I'm looking really forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you. So that's it for the Friday. I don't get to start the weekend yet because I'm going to be on KRTD this afternoon for their first Fridays of the month. So yeah, this is awesome. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. And again, we're going to have some really powerful guests coming up next week. So stay tuned, and hopefully the power stays on in Canada.
That's right. Hopefully Mother Nature will not be one of them. So, but that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much, Kerri Barber. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend, and we'll see you bright and early on Monday morning. Take care, everybody.
We bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog, we keep it in G.